Welcome to Our Soul Whisper with Cathi Belmont and co-host Dr. Pat, a sacred space for self-discovery, healing, and transformation. At the heart of Our Soul Whisper is the sacred truth. When we pause and listen inward, the soul always speaks. This show offers a safe, empowering space where those whispers are heard, honored, and lovingly guided into full expression. Each episode invites you to be curious about yourself and the reality you're in, while gently reminding you that you are exactly where you need to be. Let today's message settle in your heart. Maybe even journal about it. And if something resonates, peace, clarity, or insight, pass it along to someone whose soul might be calling for the same. Keep listening inward. Your soul knows the way. Our Soul Whisper starts now. Oh boy, we need to get at it right now, everybody. I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this beautiful ride with the most incredible coach. I can't even describe Cathi. I have known Cathi now for a bit. And what I love about what I do in the world is I get to see the joy. I get to see the awe. I get to see the wonder. What happens when people show up and they become their authentic selves. But not everyone out there is like Cathi and I. You know, we happen to be plugged into an energy with the network and so many other things. However, today's show is an expression of what Cathi also does to help other people. Today, it's all about finding joy again, right? You know, somebody asked me once, and part of this is taking a look and rediscovering the awe in life, the wonder in everyday life. And we're going to get into that right now. Cathi, what a great topic. And, you know, I was telling you before the show, I almost had you do the show today because of a little procedure I had. And I thought, oh no, I cannot miss this show. You know, let's talk about finding joy. Joy is not lost. We're not having a poster child called Joy, right? So, so walk us through this for yourself and how this came up for you, because it's so important not to forget this.
Yeah. And that's a great lead in. We don't want to forget that in our lives, you know. And it seems, first I want to say hello, everyone. I'm excited for this topic too, in this conversation. And it's, you know, I want to get into, answer your question, and I want to get into a great quote by Albert Einstein, but it's really bringing that joy in, and it's something that we think we can put on the back burner after we do all our human doing. And really, we're going to talk about, after I read this great quote, about how bringing joy in to really inspire us to be, when we go into that doing mode, how both can really work together. So it was a great quote from Albert Einstein's The World I See It, that essay he did back in the 1930s. And he says that mystery is the essential starting point for progress, and that mystery sparks the imagination and drives our human spirit to explore. Or I'm sorry, you know, let me start again, because I jumped into mine.
But I think what you just said, though, I'm like, what? That is so good.
Well, that wasn't his quote, but we'll make it available. But anyway, he talks about how mystery is at the cradle of true art and true science. And really what he's talking about is this mystery, tuning into something greater than ourselves, is that point for progress. You know, the imagination, it sparks our imagination to say, what's out there and what is my relationship to it? So it evokes that curiosity. And I like to think about how all of our great things in our world, art and science and everything else, to think about how it can come from mystery, wonder, and awe. So I just love that.
Yeah. But what you're really talking about is this full expression. And let's get into it, because I think a lot of times, Cathi, we think, to your point, we drift away from it. And we drift away from it, and we don't know we're drifting. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've ever been on like a beach And like I remember being on Waikiki once and being in a floaty. And by the way, I don't swim, so this is just scary, but don't worry about it. And Waikiki is one of the most gentlest beaches you have. So I was out there and I kind of didn't pay any attention. And before
Mhm.
I knew it, I had floated away
Mm.
down the coastline. And I'm not even sure what hotel I ended up with, but I couldn't see straight. I was confused. Do you
Mhm.
understand? Does drifting away from joy invite into our lives so many of these other things we don't want?
You know, it can allow us to miss them, what's there. So yeah, we kind of get into that doing mode, or we're not maybe being present. You know, there's this doingness part of us, and I want to preface this by say there's room for both. There's room for the human doing and the human beingness of us, and so I want to just preface it by saying I'm not discounting one or the other. It's really about balance. You know, we get into, you know, we become responsible and we have these things we want to do in our lives. We have these future goals. We have this place that we want to be and get to. And I think the paradox is bringing in joy and not postponing it, because this joy and the wonders of our creation in that this place is it can assist us in how do we want to express our responsibility, how do we want to express our productivity, and so bringing that into the mix can really be a beautiful way to experience, you know, who we are. It's not postponing it until, well, you know, when I get this done or when I get enough money or I reach my goal. It's bringing it in now. And a lot of what I do in coaching is getting to what brings you joy and what is keeping you from that, and what small steps can you bring into your day. Very simplistic. However, when we really allow ourselves to feel those successes, we're like, hey, I can really do this. So it's
Yeah.
really doing things that we enjoy just because we enjoy them, make us feel alive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting to talk about this too, because this is so very important. I turned to Linda the other day, and you know this about me. And people look at me and they say, "What, are you out of your mind? What do you mean you're doing website designs for your host?" And I just looked at my friend, not Linda, but another person. I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?"
Hmm.
Because the question was so foreign for me. And let's talk about that for a minute, because we will deny ourselves things. How many times, Cathi, in your life has somebody said something to you and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't? See,
Hmm.
isn't it part of it just
Hmm.
what we have inside, but also, isn't that what Einstein was talking about? You know, there are so many things that could influence us, but don't you help people get back to their true nature, to honor what they really want?
Exactly. And it's through those questions of, and we're actually going to be talking a little bit later about joy can be information for us. And we can actually jump to that now because I think it's really appropriate that, you know, what is it that brings you joy? And how, you know, how does that enhance your life? And you get into really getting in touch with why that's so important to you, and you can embrace that. And then as you take steps towards bringing that into your life, you know, more of that authenticity comes out. You know, we get into what brings us joy. It's information for us. It's our inner being, our compass telling us, hey, go this way. This lights you up. This is, you know, follow this path. And that's what leads us to our authenticity. And so when we're in those moments where someone questions us, and we know that, say, Dr. Pat, you enjoy doing that web design, you can say confidently, yeah, I sure do, and I love it. And that can bring such a lightness to the space, to the conversation with that confidence. And that's that confidence that, you know, coaching really brings out in you. So you can
Yeah.
confidently say, yeah, this is who I am and this is what I enjoy.
Yeah. I want to ask you this question back to our show today, which is a really important one you're going to talk about. It
Yeah.
is one of, I think, the greatest misunderstandings we have about joy and
Mhm.
awe and whatever you want to call it. I want to ask you about joy being present even when life is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, we have those moments, and I'll use an example of say we lose someone, either through a passing, a transition, and or someone just not in our lives anymore for whatever reason. And so there can be grief there. And we I think many of us feel, including myself, sometimes we have to stay there, maybe out of respect or whatever. However, maybe many of us can relate. There may be those moments that pop in where, say, we remember something really special or funny about that person, a beautiful memory, and it brings a smile, it brings a laugh. And it's really allowing those two emotions to coexist. It's not
Mm.
denying the grief, however, it's allowing room for something more. And I really do believe that those emotions can coexist if we really allow them to. And another thing in coaching we can look at, well, what would hold you back from expressing that joy in those moments or allowing yourself? And it can uncover maybe some beliefs that don't serve you anymore. Maybe you believe it was out of disrespect or you're not worthy or you have to stay there. So moments to really know, giving yourself permission to allow room for both.
Yeah. This is such an important conversation because I don't know about you, but I'm sure you're seeing with your clients. I'm also seeing it with mine. And what I've had to learn, and I wish you would talk to this because there are influences. And, a lot of times what happens is we pick up on other people's energies. Let me just call it that. But
Mhm.
part of what you're talking about today, and let's get to it, is as we pick up those energies, like I was on a call with a client yesterday, and this is the third time this person has said to me, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And my body just, and to be honest with you, to have that happen before I have to go get back surgery, come on now. But it's like, but I felt it on that day more than ever. Usually I just blow it off, but I was already stressed, right? So can you talk about the body? Because the body responds to that, but it also responds to what? Joy and awe. Talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our bodies can really take in a lot and hold on. And that's could be a whole other conversation about what energy is mine and what energy is yours and
Yeah.
how we
Oh,
take that on.
yeah.
When we bring joy and awe in, it's a Barbara Fredrickson, she's a psychologist and a
Yeah.
researcher, and she did some wonderful work on positive emotions. And it's things like joy and gratitude, love, being content, maybe in the moment. And her theory talks about is when we can feel these feelings, these positive feelings on a regular basis, it not only gives us that feel good in the moment, it also broadens our attention and our thinking. So it helps us really become more curious and creative. And so what it does is when our bodies go into stress, if we can allow ourselves room for those positive feelings, and two, it helps balance us quicker. We have that energy and that stamina, if you will, to experience those positive feelings. So when we do experience stress or something uncomfortable, we're able to get back to that balanced state again, that resting state, a lot easier. If you really want to look at, our physical bodies, joy and all, it activates our vagus nerve, which slows our heart rate down and it deepens our breathing. And breathing, as we all know, is so important. It's our life force, and we shallow breathe all the time. Take those moments to breathe deeply. Lowers inflammation. It reduces the releases those cytokines, which are proteins that are linked to chronic illness and stress. So a lot of effects on our body. You know, when we have those moments of joy and awe, it can take us out of our ego. It can take us out of our head, all the things that are going on up there. And we have moments where we feel connected to something larger than ourselves. You know, I did a lot of research on this, and I realized there's so much research on awe. I had no idea. And it really talks about how it brings us out of kind of our egoic self, if you will, and gets us in touch with that something greater, which can lead to more kindness. You know, we have that, we're more apt to be more kind, more
Yeah,
compassionate, a little more
yeah,
accepting.
yeah. Can you talk about awe for a minute? Because I think you've got some great examples we're going to talk about. Because a lot of people, when you say awe, it means different things for different people. So we're not telling people what awe means,
Hmm.
right? We're not. I
Hmm.
mean, I was in awe the other day at a squirrel.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I had a conversation with it, and I've never seen a squirrel lay down 6 feet away from a human being
Hmm.
ever. But it laid down as I was talking. I was just in awe in that moment. Can you bring us to this experience of awe and the fact that every single one of us can experience it pretty much any time if we just knew how?
Most definitely. And it's that becoming present. So it's that, it's the squirrel. And I actually have a turkey story a little bit later, so we'll kind of add to that. But it's the beautiful sunrises or sunsets. It's those moments that we witness someone being kind to another. It's where life says, look at this, and we're simply there. And so, whatever that experience is for you, that's an ah moment. It's a moment where our attention is taken away into something, again, where it's you're in touch with a greater connection, where
Yeah,
you're in touch with something, gosh, this is bigger than me. And it's a beautiful thing, because it can allow us to really feel connected to that whole as well as to each other.
yeah.
And so it's really, as you said, yeah, it's whatever that all moment is. We have turkeys in our neighborhood, and it was really fun. I was watching two of them in the courtyard, and one, I'm assuming one was a male because he was all fluffed up and had his back feathers up, and he was doing the dance around the female. And it was so fun to watch. It was fun to watch how the males do that. They do that many animals of the males do that. But the female was just pecking away, not noticing anything. I found it a beautiful dance, and I found some humor in that. That the female seemed quite unaware or uninterested. So, yeah, it's those moments of awe where I was watching this moment for about 10 minutes,
Wow,
not
yeah,
thinking, worrying about anything.
I
Those are
know.
those awe moments.
I know. Well, I want to talk to you about, I mean, this is totally connected to this. How do we become available to joy again? Because I started the show out saying joy is not missing. We didn't
No,
lose joy. It's not
yeah,
floating around there saying, find me. So, how
right.
do we make it available to us?
Yeah, it's it's savoring those moments. You know, it's actually a psychological term in psychology called savoring, where you
Yes.
intentionally notice something and appreciate that positive experience. So it's having those moments of watching the squirrel 6 feet from you and really taking that in. A lot of times we want to say, oh, isn't that cute? And we move on. Um, and maybe it's not an ah moment for you, but sometimes those ah moments, we can really give them a little bit more time to settle in. A lot of times we give more energy to some of those more uncomfortable times in our lives, and we want to give that more energy. Give more of those ah moments. Let it really settle in and seep into your body and see how it feels. You know, if you want to take a picture of that awesome sunset, take it in first and then take the action. Allow yourself that play. Allow ourselves to play. And do it just because it looks like fun. You know, I love to paint. I had a went to a friend's house years ago and she painted, and I didn't realize that. And I looked at her paintings and it inspired something in me to paint. And I said, I want to do that. And that very night, we got out the acrylics and started painting. Now, that painting may not look like much to anyone, but I keep it. I keep it for two reasons. One, it reminds me of that inspired place that I was in. And it reminds me also to look back at how far I've come. When I look at that first painting to what I've done since then, it's a beautiful reminder. Allow yourself to do what's fun just for the sake of fun. If you want to go on that walk, maybe consider don't turn on your smartwatch and count your steps. Take the walk just to enjoy it, to take it in.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about joy earlier being information. What brings you joy? And allow that to really be a message from your inner self, your higher self, who can see things on the mountaintop and say, hey, let's go this way.
Yeah.
And that will
Yeah.
lead you to that authenticity. You know?
Yeah. I just love this conversation because I think so often, what we have is we don't know how to be in that place. And I think part of this is let's talk about what it means to play for a minute. Because when I go play, I am not really playing. Competing in a, I don't think that falls under what you're going to talk about with playing is, does it? I mean, if I'm not competing and when I'm just hitting, just hitting the ball, I'm playing. But the minute that this other energy kicks in, so how important is it for us to get to that state where we stop thinking about the next thing we're going to do?
Yeah, it's allowing ourselves just that freedom to just do it. And it can be, it's a good noticing to say, yeah, when I'm with another person and I'm playing, I get into competitive mode. That can be fun as well.
Yeah.
And again, going back to that balance, allowing yourself to just say, can I let go of if I lose this one? Can I allow myself to play just to play and have fun? Maybe imagine yourself as that 5-year-old saying, okay, let's do it. So I think it really gives us an important perspective, another perspective to really be able to see it from that place. And again, going back to the benefits of the body and how it can really help us balance and keep us in that place. And again, there's room for both. Fun competition can be fun too.
I want to ask you a question too about the work you do, because I think this is so important. I've said this a million times, but I really want you to talk about it for a minute. And that is about how we bring the practicality to this, because I've never been able to do these transitions alone. I've always had to have help. So when you're working with people, what's the conversation like about savor the moments, play, and what joy tells us?
Yeah, just to remind everyone what life coaching is, it's a partnership. And the way I look at it is we look at where you are, where you want to go, and what's in the way. And I support as you find your own answers that lead to that person that you want to be. And so when we think about joy and bringing play and awe and wonder into our life, the first questions is, what do they mean to you? And, we talk about what's in the way of that. What are the blocks? What are the beliefs? And as those conversations go on, as those questions evoke awareness in you, as you allow yourself to really get in touch with what's there, that's where the blocks are revealed, those beliefs. I'm not worthy. I
Yeah,
don't think I can do it.
yeah,
And that's where the work continues. And coaching, it's not a one session thing. That's why we start off with a discovery session. Where are
yeah.
you? And what is it that you really want? And then you spend at least 3 months working through that, working through goals in a life coaching definition of goals that you really set for yourself. So, and it's really important to have that relationship to maintain that trust and to be able
Yeah.
to go to that place within.
Yeah. And boy, it's wonderful to have somebody that you can pick up the phone and call. It really is. There's nothing to
Yeah.
replace it. What a great show. Cathi, let people know how they can find out more about you. And we'd love to know your closing message here.
Yeah, so you can reach me at oursoulwhisper.com. I think you may find everything there. If you want to send me an email, if you have any questions or um, issues navigating, oursoulwhisper@gmail.com. And just as we close this session, just really consider going through your day or your week and just really take notice of what lights you up and brings you joy and let it settle in and just and be with it. Allow yourself to be surprised and to allow yourself to play. Yeah, that's my message today.
And right after this, I'm getting myself out of this computer chair, out of this studio, and I'm going to go outside and see if I can find my squirrel. Thank you, Cathi. Thank you,
That's
Emily.
beautiful.
And to all of you out there, joy is not missing. We don't need a poster to find it.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to this show again. And if you can't figure it out for yourself, like I've not been able to a lot in my life, give Cathi a ring, give her a call. Thank you, Cathi. Thank you, Emily. We'll see you all next time.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Our Soul Whisper with Cathi and Dr. Pat. Tune in every first and third Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Take a moment now to breathe in and reflect on today's message. If it brought you peace, clarity, or insight, let it settle in your heart and maybe even journal about it. Remember to like and share this episode with someone who's ready to listen within. May our soulful echoes ripple outward, awakening awareness and deep remembrance. If this show touched something within you, share it. Let's create a world where most of us pause, listen inward, and allow our light to shine. Visit oursoulwhisper.com for more.